Today also brought you something a little bit more special. It is our Paladuro, which is a once-a-year release that we do, and we just released it last weekend.
Just last weekend, lucky us.
Yeah, perfect
We got two
timing.
glasses here. Let's start a pour, no?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So here we go. So
Okay.
Paladuro is a special project that we do once a year, like I said, and it is made with 100% Texas-grown and Texas-malted barley. And so it's a special release. Like I said, we do every year. We'll have a couple barrels of it every year, and I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, well, here we go. Salud.
Salud.
There we go.
Cheers.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you. So this bottle, like all of our whiskeys, is bottled at 100 proof. So if you do like to add a little bit of ice or a little bit of water, there's still a little space for that. Obviously, once you add the water, can't take it back out. So a little more bang for your buck as well. The flavors, the aromas are honeysuckle, malt, obviously, all kinds of vanilla and beautiful flavors. This one is very popular with bourbon drinkers.
Yeah.
It's aged in brand new oak, like a bourbon has to by law. And so it's going to have a lot of the same barrel flavors that a bourbon would have, but the grain flavors would obviously be different, barley versus corn.
Yeah, and it has a long finish, too.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the richness of malt.
Yeah.
Malt, when you malt a grain, it really gives it a lot richer flavor and deeper flavor to it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So as I enjoy this nice bourbon, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
All
course.
right. So your background is in brewing. And so what is the main difference between brewing beer and distilling whiskey?
Yeah, great question. The analogy is a lot more apt when you talk about the whiskeys that we make, single malt whiskeys. So essentially, a whiskey is just a beer taken to the next level. You'll begin with all the same brewing processes that a beer would normally be made. A few differences. Perhaps we don't add hops to our whiskey. Hops are a nice flavor and preservative agent in beer. Don't work so well in whiskey, we found. But beyond that, it's very similar to brewing a beer. Then you'll take that finished beer and we'll put it in our still. Or we'll boil the beer and then collect those alcohol vapors that come off. That's just essentially distillation.
Yep.
So we'll distill beer into whiskey. And especially when you're making malt whiskey, we literally do start with a beer. For example, if you're making a bourbon, you would start with a corn mash or a corn beer. We don't really drink corn beer, really, and so it's not quite as obvious. But with barley, with single malt whiskeys, the process is exactly like brewing a beer up front.
Nice, nice. No, well, I think, as you think about the finish, or even like when, I don't know, drinking, what's it called? The white dog?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's like a step in every, or maybe a flavor in every step of the process. How about that?
Yep, no doubt. White dog, like you mentioned, is white whiskey that hasn't really been aged yet.
That's right.
It's not something that I'll sip sitting around the fireplace.
No.
But it's really,
maybe if you're doing a tour, right?
Yeah,
Be like,
sure.
hey, what was that?
And that's where it becomes very educational, because so much of the flavor of whiskey comes from the barrel. So that if you have different types of whiskey all aged the same way, they're going to have some similarities to them. But the remaining component of the flavor is the type of grain that you've used.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be, the big difference. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a very common denominator in all whiskeys, is going to be that barrel character.
Yeah. So
when you get to try the spirit without it, then you kind of see what the essence of the whiskey is behind the oak. It's a long common practice. If a poorly distilled whiskey, just add lots of oak aging to it try to hide the flavor, right? And not that that's what they all are, but no, it's nice to be able to taste the spirit, underlying spirit, and then kind of understand kind of the differences between the whiskeys. If you could taste, a white malt whiskey next to a white bourbon, it'd be really educational, because those are really what makes those two spirits different from one another.
Right. And do you see that people that come to your distillery, that they're looking for more of that Texas flavor, the bourbons, or more of the if you see the kind of the richness of the color,
Yep.
or more of kind of the lighter flair?
Yeah, no, bourbon is the American whiskey, and I think the American palate, then also the American color perception on whiskey, they like their whiskeys to be dark.
Yeah.
But since we're not doing bourbon, we're doing single malt whiskeys.
Right.
We'll age our whiskeys, some of them, as if they were bourbon. Classically, single malt whiskeys, Irish and Scotch style whiskeys, they're not aged in new oak traditionally. A Scotch distiller will tell you that the malt spirit is too delicate and not appropriate for the new barrel. I've got some Scottish heritage in me, and I can definitely say it's not that. They're just too cheap to buy a new barrel, is all that it is. And so they're buying new used barrels from all the bourbon distillers, but no. It's the bourbon laws in the United States that kind of does this. The bourbon distilleries, for imagine, even Tennessee whiskey, so Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, all of them can only use their barrels once. They then have to sell them. So this is a massive worldwide market for barrels. They go to Ireland and Scotland for whiskey. They go to Mexico for tequila.
Right.
And
exactly.
all around the world for different spirits, rum in the Caribbean and everything.
Right.
So, yep.
Well, love it. Thank you for sharing that. Now let's talk about the name. I think as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to figure out what to name a company or a product, and what's going to stick. How did you all come up with Andalusia?
Yeah, no, we struggled with it for a while, and we went through all kinds of normal whiskey names. Like there's a little creek near us called McCall Creek, and so McCall Creek whiskey. That's a classic whiskey name. We could have gone with that, but we were just searching through our land deed. Actually, the land where the distillery is. It is my family farm, so my wife and I live there. We raise sheep and chickens, and we have a llama, so it's a real functional farm.
Well, I did
ranch
too.
out there. Okay,
but I'm in Austin proper.
Awesome.
But no HOA.
Yeah, perfect. Yep. And so when we were looking over the deed, we've lived there for about 15 years now. The old land deed talked about the previous owners being the Andalusia ranches, and so I was reading it out loud, and my wife was there, and Tommy was there, and his wife was there, and that word just really popped for all of us. Yeah. Tommy's wife did a semester abroad in Andalusia in southern Spain.
Yes.
And she says the rolling hills, especially where we are, in the part of the hill country we are, really reminded her of the scenery there. We often age whiskey in sherry barrels. Sherry comes from Andalusia. So we've got several ties to the name. And then we just Americanized it a little bit and called it Andalusia. A little easier to say. And
how about that Texan accent?
Yeah. And then once you got it, it's just a lot of fun to say, right? Andalusia, come on.
Love it. No, and I think, as you go out to the hill country, obviously there's so many regions in Texas, but talking about the Texas Whiskey Trail, I think the hill country has a special place.
It does. Yep. We were founding members of the Whiskey Association and the Whiskey Trail, and that is the most concentrated area of distilleries in the state. The Texas Whiskey Trail, obviously, Texas is a big state, so we've divided it up into regions. North Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth. You have East Texas with Houston and so forth. So the hill country is one of the smaller regions, but has the most distilleries, and it's always been kind of the epicenter of creativity. Going back to craft beer long ago, it was the Austin, San Antonio, hill country triangle that really was the driving force of creativity in craft beer throughout the 90s, 2000s. And then that eventually made its way out to some of the larger cities. So it's always been with the wine country being there. It's just the center of creative production, for sure.
Yeah, and you see that along the hill country, the landscapes, right? And so let's go back to I think maybe your early beginnings. Going from a brewery and brewing beer. What was that process like for you to really kind of go all into whiskey?
Yep. I think, and that's often I get people ask me that advice, and when they're asking that, I can always tell that they've kept their day job and they're trying to launch a business at the same time, and God bless them. And some people have bills to pay. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've just got to do, like you said, you have to go all in. You've got to quit your day job and spend 60 hours a week doing this. Making the whiskey, producing it, all that's a lot of fun. It's not necessarily the hardest part. It is selling it, getting out in the market and selling it. The spirits distribution and retail industry is just so entrenched.
Yeah.
It reminds me of craft beer 30 years ago, where they would just much rather sell 5 different products at a liquor store, and not all the fun creative stuff that people are making.
Right.
And
so how do you get out there? How do you get out there in the market?
Yeah, it's tough. We've got to do things like this. I'm doing a lot of podcasts. Doing a lot of tastings where we'll show up in stores. So if you show up in a Specs or a Total Wine, you might see me pouring a sample. People are often surprised to see the founder there.
Yeah.
Hey, when you only have 8 employees in your company, half of them are production and bar, then it's to us to get out there. And I think we represent and send the message the best. Tommy and I and Moose, our distiller. Salespeople are great, but the folks kind of want to talk to the people that make it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sure. So that's what helps for us is a real authentic tasting experience. In this we got whiskey business this Friday night in San Antonio. I'll be there at the booth, and so it's
So you're saying it's a hustle?
It is. So it's hitting the bricks and hustling. And that's the side of the business we didn't really know a lot about. We knew about production and hospitality, and so it's been a long, tough lesson for us on sales. So,
nice. And so, like when people come to the distillery, what can they expect?
Yeah. So it's a beautiful, farm scene. We have no neighbors, and so we're right on Major Highway 281, but in between the towns of Blanco and Johnson City. We're probably about 7 or 8 miles from both little towns, and so we've got no neighbors. So the distillery is on a 30-acre working farm, like I said. Depending on what time of year, you might see some baby lambs bouncing around in the pasture with their moms. And, there's always the Dalai Lama. She's the guardian lama.
Okay.
Yep, she takes care of all the lambs and makes sure a coyote or a dog or something doesn't get in. And, And then we've got some.
Does she get rewarded a little bit?
She just thinks she's a sheep, and so it really works out well. If you have more than one llama, they'll go off together. But if you have one, they'll join the flock.
They'll join the flock.
She just thinks she's a sheep, and they hate anything that looks like a dog. So they'll take care of business. Yeah. if need be, when the baby lambs are around. So, but it's a beautiful scene. We've got a 2-story, kind of a barn dominium style, a metal building that we've converted inside with reclaimed wood and leather furniture, and so it's very, very relaxing. We have a library inside the tasting room, so you can go in the back in the library and grab a book about whiskey or about whatever. And we've upstairs games. You can do flights, cocktails, and then this year we've just opened our on-site restaurant.
Okay.
I think we set some kind of land speed record. We went from dirt to serving food in 30 days.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So that's what's good about being out in the country with no permitting and codes and stuff.
There you go.
We did everything according to code, but didn't have to wait for anybody to approve it and everything. So we got to go.
You're really kind of making it like a destination.
It is.
Right?
Absolutely. And, a lot of our customers are coming from Austin or San Antonio or further, and so they're going to spend a little time with us. So we want to make it an enjoyable experience, a very relaxing experience. Get out of the hustle and bustle of the city and go to a nice, calm, chill farm area kind of setting. Very quiet where we are.
And I do feel that people that may live in, like, say, San Antonio or Austin, or even in North Texas, they're trying to kind of get away maybe from like the hectic life.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
And so they're looking for a retreat, if you will, right?
And we're right smack dab in the middle of wine country. So there are 40 wineries within 40 miles of us. And so I think that's just kind of a long time kind of fun practice that people have been doing is kind of getting out to the country, visit the wineries. And we see a lot of groups of people that come out to the wineries and didn't even know we were there. And so after a day of wine, they want a little change of gears and a nice whiskey or a cocktail.
Hey, there you go. That's right. So let's kind of, I think just sitting here today, what advice would you give yourself on day one?
Oh man, this is
deep. We're going deep.
You throw me a curveball there. Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, it is what I thought it would be. Is go more all in and make as much whiskey as you possibly can.
Yeah.
and start earlier.
Yeah.
When you're small, you're testing batches and you're trying to get things right, and that's good. But man, I wish we would have put back a lot more whiskey 8 years ago than we did. And, because Texas whiskey is a real movement. It is a real thing.
Right.
And we're just getting started with whiskey. We're going to be talking about this for the next 20 years. And
That's
so
right.
It's very exciting.
Well, I'm very excited to not only to get on the Texas Whiskey Trail, but going down to the hill country, going down 290, taking a left on 281, down into Blanco.
And then when you're in Blanco, you can do the Blanco hat trick on the Texas Whiskey Trail. You'll actually get,
tell me about that.
You'll get bonus points on the trail if you complete the 3 distilleries in Blanco in one day.
Okay.
And so we're just outside of Blanco, but they'll call us Blanco. But then, in town, you've got Milam and Green, and you've got Real Spirits at Real Ale Brewing Company. And so if you do all 3 in one day, you'll get some extra bonus points, and you'll just be a real hero if you do.
Nice. Well, I'm going to have to sign up for that. Well, Ty, I really appreciate you coming on the show and learning more about Andalusia Whiskey Company, and definitely, for everybody out there, get out there in the hill country.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Mando. Looking forward to having you at the distillery.
Yeah. Take care.
Cheers.